Hello, everyone. Good to see all of you again after a long gap. We are back with yet another episode on anthropology. And specifically speaking, we will discuss biological anthropology in some detail. But keep in mind, our anthropology optional is not just about biology per se, but it is about biological anthropology, where we emphasize more on the applications of these biological aspects to humans, to humanity, right? That's what anthropology is. It's a discipline of infinite curiosity about humans. So that's an important sort of a distinction to keep in mind. So a biology answer isn't necessarily a biological anthropology answer. And one more thing, most of the students probably think that biology portion is going to be taxing, it's going to be slightly challenging, but trust me, that is not the case at all. Biology is in fact quite easy, and in fact a lot of fun as well. And you yourself will realize this thing after watching these videos on the playlist. So in this playlist, we will start from the very basics and try to sort of help you build some interest and more importantly, help you build a strong foundation when it comes to biological anthropology. So without any further delay, let's get started. All right. See, so far, what have we discussed? We have discussed biological evolution. We are discussing biological evolution, right? Within biological evolution, we had a few things. First one was creationism. Okay. In fact, this is basically saying this is almost like anti-evolutionism. Iske baad we had the first few ideas that came about pre-Darwin. Okay, and this is the example. If you guys remember, the example here was, what is the example here? Somebody remind me, which was the animal here? I keep mentioning this thing because these are not all standalone topics. Okay, like it is made out to be in many books and notes that you see in the market. Okay, finches. Okay, that is that right, guys? We have Darwinism and then we have post-Darwinism. And what does post-Darwinism mean? Post-Darwinism is not a theory, but it is everything that came after Darwinism put together is going to be your post-Darwinist sort of ideas. Okay, so in Darwinism, iske baad, so before we go to post-Darwinism, I had told you that we had to have some basic bio or basic genetics. Okay, so I just put it as basic bio, and that is what we had covered yesterday. I introduced you to so many new things, right? And then we also need to understand Mendel and his contributions. Okay, so this part was done, this part was done, this part was done, this part was done. Okay, sorry, my bad. My question was Darwinism, I guess. Okay, in pre-Darwinism, what was the example? And in Darwinism, the example was finches. Okay, these are classic examples. Perfect, Naveen, great. Archana, how are you? All well, I hope. Megha, correct. Okay, so that is the one. Have you guys seen giraffes fight? Generally, in the animal kingdom, you will notice that competition for the females, especially during times many of these species they go into heat, right? So at that particular point, there has to be some sort of competition amongst the males in order to get the mating rights. Okay, human beings are not extremely different, right? However, there is some semblance of civilization to it. However, in that you will notice that when the giraffes are fighting for the mating rights, they generally fight with their necks. It's quite a sight. If possible, just watch it, YouTube it. Okay, so let's talk about Mendel. So Mendel is another this particular person, Darwin, right? So during his phase, early 20s, he had this amazing opportunity to go to different places around the world, be able to collect the specimens and get some sort of an idea. He published a short little essay or a manuscript in the beginning. So the ideas were put out there. However, later on in his life, when he published this Otus on the origin of species, that is when he became quite popular, right? However, Mendel did not have the same amount of sort of following. Archana, great. Okay, I'm glad to hear. He did not have the same sort of following or this rock star kind of a status during his period, right? Most of his works were sort of seen and appreciated post his time period. Okay, yeah. So Gregor Mendel, right? He was an Austrian monk, and he was sort of laboring away, in his garden, right? In what is now as Czechoslovakia. Okay, Czech Republic, Slovakia, whatever it is, right? In that area, basically, Austria, those areas. And he was pretty much experimenting with something called pea plants. right? Or whatever garden plants that he had. And during that particular phase, in fact, he was like a high school teacher as well, right? And he was literally doing all of these things in relative obscurity. But one good thing that he did is that he actually did publish his works, and his works are published somewhere in 1865. Few years after Darwin, but they were sort of contemporaries. Okay, Darwin, the rock star, and this person, almost somebody working in obscurity. So it shows you, from his published, his published material, you can understand that he could model the inheritance of certain characteristics, okay, of those plants. So, for instance, in those pea plants, he found like the pea pod, right? Um, they might be wrinkled, they might be smooth, it may be long, it may be short. All of those kinds of things, he would like work on those things, and by using simple mathematical principles, he would be able to sort of model the inheritance of certain characteristics. That is what we are going to talk about, right? But what are the sort of principles that he came out with? In fact, he came out with three sort of laws that we're going to take a look at. And if possible, whenever possible, I will try to elaborate these ideas, in our course as we go forward. Right? It's really fascinating, right? Pretty much, genetics, yeah, big contribution for genetics by him. But however, it took another 35 years for his works to be rediscovered. Okay, and but it provides, almost like the real fundamentals of this understanding of this genetics, right? Of this basis of inheritance that you're studying today, right? Especially this dominant and recessive, these sort of traits, all of those things, right? All of these things that he had published, they are sort of like the foundational works that helped us build today's modern genetics. Okay, so that is that. Okay, so that is that. So if you remember, so three laws, okay, just remember it like this: SID, SID, okay, SID or Siddharth, whatever. You might have a friend named Sid, right? So first one is segregation, second one is independent assortment, and third one is dominant and recessive. Is that number one, number two, number three like Newton? Absolutely not. But generally, this is just a way for you to remember, and you can remember it in this particular way. Okay, that is that. Okay, so the first one is segregation. Okay, you can note this down. First one is law of segregation, second one is law of independent assortment, and then you also have dominant and recessive. What does law of segregation say? Okay, and I have a lot of things written on this above slide. I'll explain this. The next slide, just take a look. Okay, law of segregation basically says, during your gamete formation, the alleles for each gene separate from each other such that each gamete formed carries only one allele for each gene, right? For each gene. Now let's break this down. It is actually quite simple. Okay, and I'm giving you some definition types. It does not necessarily matter, because at the end of the day, I don't necessarily recommend that you guys go with full-on definition sort of patterns in your answers, but just show not what you have studied and memorized. Just show what is your understanding, and these are things that you can explain very, very easily. Just think about this. We said that there are genes. What is a gene? You guys know. And what is an allele? Alleles are versions of a gene or variants of a gene, right? So a particular gene, we have allele 1, we have allele 2, two different alleles that make up your gene. Now let us say we are talking about a gene which has got two alleles, let's say capital B and lowercase b, right? Capital B and lowercase b. Okay, so the father can be capital B, or so basically, what are the combinations that you can have? You can have this kind of a combination of the two alleles. You can have this sort of a combination. You can have this sort of combination, both of which are the same. But I mentioned this two separate ones. I'll explain why. And this. So basically, you have three different types, right? So that is that. So however, when humans as sexually reproducing sort of organisms, right? So during your sexual reproduction, what happens is you're providing only one. You're providing only one allele to the next generation. So let us say that we are talking about, any sort of so let's talk about a gene that again, a gross oversimplification. Let's just say we are talking about a particular gene that is going to decide what is your eye color or what is your hair color, right? So you could have a capital B, you have a lowercase b. The father is going to provide one particular allele to the child, and the mother is going to provide one particular allele to the child. So let us say this, we'll just take a look at this. So all kinds of combination. Let us say this is the father, this is the father, this is the father, this is the father. The father, if he is capital B lowercase b, okay, and the mother, if she's a capital B lowercase b, these are the different kind of combinations you're going to have, meaning one from the father, one from the mother. This could be one child, or this capital B from the father and this capital B from the mother. This could be another kind of a child or a combination in a child. Then you could have lowercase b and lowercase b from both father and mother. And again, you can have lowercase b from the father, capital B from this thing. So I hope this is sort of clear. So your sperm is going to be haploid, right? It contains only one of these alleles. And your mother and her egg is going to have only one particular allele, and that could be one of these. And using all of these things, they basically, so the point is, in your sperm, in your egg, this is going to, so during this gamete formation stage, the alleles are going to sort of segregate from each other, right? I hope that is clear. So segregation, what does the word segregate mean? Exactly, it is going to be separating. Okay, so these alleles are going to separate, okay, and go into the gametes. What are these gametes? It is going to be your sperm, it is going to be your egg. Okay, the next one is going to be law of independent assortment. See, independent assortment is another simple um, law. If you can see this particular diagram, again, this is not something that you want to draw, okay? You'll not have space to explain all of these things, but just this is again for your understanding, right? See, if you're going to draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these sort of circles and explain what is in there, obviously you're not going to be finishing in 7 minutes, or the fact that you said that in 2 pages and 3 pages it is not possible. Possibly it is because of that, but these are here in my slides so that it helps you aid in your understanding. You guys have time before your exams for quite a bit, so we can be a little more elaborate when we explain these. So take a look at this. So you have, let us say, A, B, C, okay, 3 different types of genes. Okay, and each of these will have, let us say, capital A lowercase a, or a capital B, or a lowercase b lowercase c, whatever it is. Okay, so you have the alleles for them. These alleles, A, B, C, they are not in any particular order when they go on to the next. Okay, so genes for different traits are sort independent of each other. So let us say you have been given a capital A. So we have, let's say, P, a T, and an S, whatever sort of variable that you want to take, right? You can have all different combinations. If I take capital A, okay, it does not mean, so I can have a capital B also, I can have a lowercase b also in this particular combination. It does not matter. So this is completely independent of this particular gene, right? This particular gene, A gene, is going to be completely independent of your capital B, sorry, your B gene. And same thing, it has nothing to do with C, okay? And I will explain. So you can have all of these sort of combinations. So what could be the combinations? If I have a capital A, okay, in B, I could possibly have this combination, capital B, capital A, capital B, lowercase b. I can have a capital B, lowercase b as a combination as well. At the same time, I can have, let's say, capital A, capital B, and a capital C, or a lowercase c. Okay, this is capital C, and then you can have a capital, another, let's say, capital C, lowercase c. All kinds of combinations are possible. Just because this is a capital A, it has no bearing on the other gene. And any of these things have no bearing on this. And that is why, so each of these genes are going to be sort of, coding for different traits, and they are independent of each other sort of traits. Okay, I hope that is clear. Okay, what you can do is just try to find out what are the different combinations in case we are talking about, let's say, 3 genes. Okay, what are the different combinations in case we are talking about 2 genes? So for instance, try this example. Okay, let us say there is one particular gene that is going to code for tall and short. Okay, think about another one. You have the P's, right? You have smooth and you have wrinkled. or a curly. So this could be another one, capital S and a small s or something like that. And possibly you have a purple and you have some other color that is, okay, so let's call this capital P and a lowercase p. See what are the different kind of combinations. What you have here has no bearing on this, and what you have here has no bearing on this, and what you have here is going to be no bearing on this during your gamete formation. So that is your independent assortment. So generally, when we talk about it in terms of two, okay, this is going to be called a monohybrid cross, and this is what we've been doing in our Punnett square. But however, for law of independent assortment, we can't understand this by just using monohybrid cross. You need two character genes to compare and say that the characters of different alleles or of different genes are assorting independently. So for that, we can take a look at something like this. In dihybrid cross, where you have two different genes. Okay, so in dihybrid cross, we can show independent assortment. Capital T and lowercase t and capital P and lowercase p can come together in any combination during gamete formation. In fact, I'll just write that for you. Okay, you can even try this with, the previous example that I showed you with that P and a T and an S. Okay. And finally, the third law that we have is dominance and recessive. So in these sort of laws, I mean, it's not important that you sit and draw all of these things in your answers, okay? But this is for your understanding rather, okay? And understanding has to be sort of crystal clear. What is dominant and what is recessive? Let us say, what does the word dominant mean? So dominant basically means it is possibly going to dominate over the other one. Okay, so here there are two different terms here. Okay, we have the dominant, okay, and then we have the recessive. So the dominant one is probably going to sort of, overshadow the recessive one. So if I say there are two different ones, okay, let's say there is a capital T and a lowercase t, and let us assume, okay, that capital T is going to be your dominant. This is the nomenclature, by the way. This is how exactly it is written. The dominant ones are expressed as capital, and the lowercase ones are your recessive ones. So if it is something like this, let us say capital T is your tall, okay, lowercase t is your short. So what could this be? The capital T and the lowercase t, though it is like 50% of your alleles, so one allele is coming from father and one allele coming from your mother, and they're 50-50. However, because of its nature that this is dominant, it is going to be overshadowing the lowercase t. Tall will overshadow the short, okay, because this is recessive and because this is dominant. So an organism with at least one dominant allele displays the effect irrespective of the presence of the recessive one. Okay, so if you have one dominant, you do not have to look at what is this other allele. You don't have to look at what is the other allele. Now, just a few pointers that I want to tell you. All of these things are sort of very, very important from the standpoint that the sort of understanding and the sort of inference that he had gleaned from this thing was, 100 and what is that, 150, 60 years ago. And that is quite awesome just by, doing a lot of trials with these plants, right? And that is that. Now, even today, most of these laws, okay, all of these laws, okay, are still good and they are valid, except for, a very few sort of minor sort of, exceptions. And those exceptions, we've come to know of it because, because of our modern genetics and all of that. Okay, and we'll take a look at those things as well. Hope you guys are finding a biological anthropology playlist useful for your preparation. Hope this video helped reinforce your basics and also helped you connect a little better with the applications. If there's any other aspect of anthropology that you would like to know more about, do let us know in the comment section and we will try to make videos on those as well. Thank you for watching and we will see you in the next video.